So, Julie Ryan, my really amazing good friend, welcome to my show. It's nice to have you sit on my proverbial couch for a little bit. I've been on your beautiful show a couple of times, and I like flipping the roles a little bit. So, we get to ask you all the amazing questions today. How are you doing today, Julie? It's so good to see you.
Thanks, honey. I just adore you. So it's always a delight to get to spend time with you. I don't care where or when.
I'm so fascinated by you because you are an amazingly brilliant entrepreneur, inventor of all these amazing things. And you zigged instead of zagged and came into the world of intuition a little bit. Was there one thing that prompted you to do that? Was it just a curiosity? Was there a life event? And did the medical intuition and mediumship happen at the same time? Or did they kind of come along separately for you?
Well, as you alluded to, I'm an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've founded 9 companies in 5 industries. So, bottom line, I'm a businesswoman who learned how to do woo woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness.
Love it.
And I learned how to do all this stuff. I didn't have dead people chasing me when I was little, let alone what I would have done with that if I had. So, the thing that was the catalyst that got me interested was a girlfriend, Heather, more than 30 years ago, gave me a book called Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mays. And she called herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? I'd never heard that term before. And I read her book, and I was in the hospital supply industry, developing products, testing prototypes, eventually inventing surgical devices, manufacturing them. So I was always interested in healing, but on the supply side, helping people that worked in hospitals. And when she said she was a medical intuitive, that really piqued my curiosity. So after I read her book, I went to a bookstore because we didn't have the internet yet. And I went to a bookstore and found a book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan, who was a former NASA physicist who parlayed very complex quantum physics principles into understandable English for the non scientific mind. That would be me. And I wanted to know more. So I called her school and I said, "Do you guys have anybody teaching this stuff in my area?" And sure enough, they did. And so that really started my journey. And I studied with my mentor for 6 years. Fast forward from 30 years ago, and now I teach people all over the world and haven't jumped into a little bit. It is my career now. I sold a couple of companies and thought, okay, now what? And here I am. And it's the most fun thing I've ever done.
I love that. That's the best classification. And so how did you, and I didn't remember that about Barbara Brennan, that she had the background in physics as well.
Mhm.
Um, so it's been a while since I read her beautiful book, huge, big, chunky book of goodness. But how did you mirror or manage having the analytical brain that comes with running a business, inventing things, being in a distributor, supply chain, all of that, with the I don't want to say softer intuitive part, but the subtler intuition? Were they at odds with one another, or were you able to kind of weave that together? Because I know a lot of people who are coming to this work now from the logical side of things sometimes struggle a little bit with getting out of their own way and kind of unlocking that. Was it an easy fix for you?
It just flowed. I
Mhm.
didn't really bucket because I was interested in it, I think. And I certainly teach people who are medical providers and come from other more linear thinking engineers and professors and scientists and housewives and truck drivers and whatever, all walks of life. But it wasn't ever a conflict, primarily because, and perhaps this was my entrepreneurial mind at play. I never thought about it this way before. But if I don't know the answer to something, I always trust that the person I need and the information that I need show up at the exact right time. And they always have my whole life, regardless of whether it's a business thing or a personal thing or whatever. Number
Mhm.
one. And number two, the other place I go, Heather, is if I don't understand something that's woo woo in nature, I tell myself, okay, well, is it feasible? Yeah. Do I understand it? No. Will I when I go back to heaven? Most likely. And that satisfies my need to have to know how everything works. I don't think we're supposed to know how everything works.
Yeah. I agree with that. There's something to the element of mystery. It's like the ultimate Rubik's Cube. We're not going to line up all the dots, all the colors while we're here. But like you said, we do get the answers ultimately,
Yeah.
just not while we're walking around in our human form, because what would be the fun of that? You don't get the answers at the
Right.
back of the book. You gotta go through the quizzes and the studying. So on that note, a little bit, it's no surprise to anybody that we're in this period of change and turbulence and upliftment for the better, but are there any skills from that entrepreneurial inventor mindset, Jedi mind hacks, habits? How can we build resilience while we're looking around a world that has us almost on the back foot sometimes in fear? A lot of people don't have the experience of taking risks, of having that resilience, of having that flexibility. What advice would you give somebody who might be facing that in a big way for the first time right now?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's all about the fear. It's moving through the fear. And certainly the entrepreneurial mind. There are some schools have thought that it's a DNA thing. Now, the
Hmm.
only person that I know who was an entrepreneur in my family was my paternal grandfather was a pharmacist who had a couple of pharmacies with soda fountains, the old-fashioned pharmacies. Yeah. So he had those. But the rest of the family, they were either teachers or certainly back before the turn of the 20th century, there were a lot more entrepreneurs, whether they be a carpenter or a, shoe shine person or whatever. People were doing their own things more so than working for big companies. I think that really came about in the 20th century. And it's important to remember that when we're in fear, that we lose our clarity because whenever we're in fear, whether it's a real fear or a fake fear, and it's 99.9% of the time it's a fake fear, like, oh my God, I'm going to be late for this appointment. And the body doesn't know any different from that versus, oh, there's a train headed for me and my car's stuck on this track. I need to get out of the car. And so we go into fight or flight and we have the stress chemicals get released, the cortisol, the norepinephrine, all that kind of stuff. And the blood drains from our brain and goes to our extremities in our heart so we can run away from the perceived fear, even if that fear is, oh my God, we're going to be late for an appointment, and we lose clarity, and that keeps us stuck. So the other thing that's interesting about the entrepreneurial mind is Carnegie Mellon did a study on it about 30 years ago and found that there is a percentage of the population that is more willing to take risk. Most people are risk averse.
Mhm.
And there have been many times throughout my career where I've thought to myself, what the heck are you doing? Have you lost your ever loving mind? And then I move forward anyways because I can see the end product. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I go back to the people I need to show up and the circumstances all materialize at the perfect time. May I share a story with you on that?
Absolutely, please.
This doesn't really have anything to do with business, but it's still a fun story. I was flying to Los Angeles. I was giving a talk at a conference out there, and I was only going to be in town about 48 hours. And I was flying out on Mother's Day, and my doctor was there. I used to live in Los Angeles, and she was going to come in on Mother's Day to meet me just to do my annual, whatever, whatever. So the plane was running late. We were behind schedule by about an hour. And my plan was pick up the car, stop by someplace, and pick her up some flowers as a thank you,
Hmm.
just for coming in on Mother's Day, because I knew she was going to meet her family for lunch, I think a late lunch. So she could, I mean, how sweet is that? She was helping me. So we're late. I'm texting her, we're landing. And I thought, oh, I wonder if there's one of those gift shops in the LA airport. I was landing at LAX. I wonder if there's one of those gift shops. And since it's Mother's Day, maybe they'll have some flowers or something. Because there's no way I was going to have time to stop by the time I got the car and all of that. I promise you, 5 minutes after, within 5 minutes of getting off the plane and having that thought, this woman walked by with this big bouquet of flowers in her arms. And I said, "Oh, happy Mother's Day. Your flowers are beautiful." She said, "Here, take them." And I said, "No, no, 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 no." She said, "Honestly, I'm flying to New York. They are going to be way more trouble than they're worth. They're going to look awful by the time I get there. Please take them and enjoy them." So not only did I get my flowers, I got them for free and I got them within 5 minutes of having that thought. So that's an example of trusting the people I need, the circumstances I need to show up are going to show up right in the perfect time. I took him to my doctor. She put him in a vase and she was thrilled.
5 minutes is quite a
Five
turnaround.
minutes. I know. It was great.
That's awesome. And you have a really beautiful way of helping people connect into that fear. Because, like you said, we don't know if it is the train coming toward us or I have a hangnail that really hurts and I need to pull it and I'm scared.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, could you share that with us? Because I think it's just such a beautiful tool to
Sure.
to check in with anybody.
Yeah. I call it the 2 minute rule.
Mm.
And thoughts that come into our heads, we have 70,000 thoughts that come into our heads each day. How can you even fathom that? And we don't hear most of them, we don't recognize most of them. And when we have a thought that comes into our head, it doesn't have a meaning until we give it a meaning. For example, I may like purple, you may hate purple. I may see somebody wearing a purple dress and I think, "Oh, isn't that beautiful?" And you're thinking, "Oh, wow, why would somebody buy that dress?" We control our thoughts. We control what our thoughts mean to us. And they're all based on our own frame of reference. So when we remember that thoughts don't have a meaning, and we know, okay, if a thought feels good or neutral, go with it. It's accurate. If a thought feels badly, however, investigate because it's based in fear. Every thought that feels badly is based in fear, anger, jealousy, boredom, grief, whatever, actual fear. It's all based in fear. So here's the game. When you have a thought that feels badly, you ask yourself, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? It's a yes or no answer. If the answer is yes, it's going to kill you in the next 2 minutes. Get out of the road before the truck runs you over. That's a rational fear. Change the conditions. If, however, it's the answer is no because you're running late for an appointment, then you know that's an irrational fear. And what happens is when we point out if this is a real fear or a fake fear, it's an irrational fear, it keeps us out of the fight or flight situation, which is an automatic response from the body, and it keeps our clarity about our brain. When we go into fight or flight and all those stress hormones are flooding us, well, what's the root cause of all disease and illness? Chronic inflammation. So not only does it help us not be in fear so we can move forward, but it helps us on a physical level. The beauty about the 2 minute rule is it's free, it's convenient, you can use it unlimited times a day, it's free, and it works anywhere your brain is, and your brain's usually with you wherever you are.
Most of
So
the time.
so
Sometimes. Yeah.
it's just a habit for me. If I have a thought that feels bad, I am immediately, I don't even think about it. I'm immediately into, no, this is fake. Ryan quit being such a drama queen, and I'm laughing, and then I move forward, and that helps us be able to move forward from the fear because we use our imaginations to envision all the things that can go wrong. What if we used our imagination to envision all the things that can go right?
That's
Yeah.
such an important point too about clarity. I think that one gets lost a lot of
Yeah.
times that we get in a fog about things and we aren't making clear decisions. So why even step up to bat, if you will, to take a swing at that when you know it's not going to be, you're not bringing your A game, you're not bringing all of your capabilities to that.
And what we want to do is we want to be able to get guidance from spirit. And when we're in fear, it's a low vibration, and spirit doesn't communicate on the I feel crappy channels because the vibration's too low. So you got to raise your vibration level. How you know you're being led to do something? I mean, fear's always going to come up, but the 2 minute rule really helps you navigate it. But how we know we're being led to do something is it feels fun, it feels interesting. We want to know more. It's on our mind a lot. And so that's how we can tell if we're being led to something.
That you just read my mind as you would do about how we tell our imagination versus spirit communication or our
Yeah.
spirit guides. And for me, it's often that space of neutrality and the repeat. If it's something that it's not inflating my ego, the idea, it's not upsetting me, but it's like, yeah, it's in that middle zone and it keeps repeating. If I can dismiss it and it comes back and back and back, not that I'm being stubborn or obstinate, but that's me clarifying, hey, I didn't put that thought there. What is it like for you? How do you recognize that? It's the things that are positive, and I think I heard you say neutral or an aspect of neutral as well. Is it the same?
Neutral or positive? Yeah, for me, if I'm being led to do something, it's exciting. It's like, well, I gotta explore this. What's going on? What's out there? What are other people doing? How's my idea different? Well, as an inventor, we got to figure out what everybody else is doing and then come up with a better mousetrap to get it patented. But with everything that I've done, even new things in my garden, we're getting ready to plant a bunch of extra camellia bushes, and I'm excited about that because we're trimming up some Leland cypress that are looking a little scraggly on the bottom. And so I was researching what kind of camellias do I want to
Mhm.
plant in there, and it's joyful and it's fun and it's interesting, and I'm expending the effort to figure out, okay, what kind of color do I want? What size do I want? How far apart do I want them spaced? And it's not just with business or woo woo, it's with everything. So if it's exciting, if it's fun, if it's interesting to you, you're being led.
I love that. And you have such a beautiful space. I've seen it on Instagram where it just feels so much like a beautiful sanctuary that you recover in, which kind of brings up another thing I have been asked a lot doing mediumship work, working with dead people, seeing dead people, working with their loved ones. That can be a really heavy space to navigate for a lot of people. How do you maintain your balance energetically and find your joy in that space and not just for you, but hold that container so beautifully and so elegantly for other people? Did that come easily for you to be in that consultative and supportive leadership role, or is that something you needed to work with for a while?
No, it was easy for me. And thank you for your kind comments. Uh, Spirit's hilarious, number one. Spirit's pure love and joy, number two. So when I'm working with a client or somebody calls into my show and they want to talk to a deceased loved one, and I tell them, look, spirit's normally not going to give us some big esoteric life-changing piece of advice. They're going to say, they're going to show me a watermelon, and I'm going to say, they're showing me watermelons. That mean anything to you? And the client's going, yeah, my dad loved watermelon, and he used to say he'd spit the seeds in a cup, and then we'd plant them, and then we'd have our whole watermelon patch for next year, and they'll start laughing because a lot of the times they're in deep grief and they feel terrible. And their loved ones in heaven are always, it's been my experience anyways, they're always going to say things that are going to lighten the mood, and they'll get them laughing pretty early on. And so I had one guy, one time we were talking to the grandfather, and he's showing me him driving this red truck, and he was in your neck of the woods. He was in the Carolinas, and he had this big old hound dog that was in the passenger seat, and the hound dog looked like he was, just his buddy driving along, and he'd stick his head out the window and all that. And I said, does that mean anything to you? And he said, yeah, Grandpa Joe had a hound dog named Barney, and I have the truck. And, he willed it to me, and then I got Barney when he died. So Grandpa is giving us stuff. I don't know that Grandpa had a dog named Barney and drove a red truck, but
Mhm.
they'll give us information like that will validate it's them with whom we're really conversing, number one. And then number two, something that's just a positive memory. I mean, you can't picture that without smiling. And so the grandchild was thrilled that and that was just one thing. that
Hmm.
he gave us. But I find that they want to establish that pretty early on. Okay, it's really me and whatever. They will give us practical advice. One of my favorite stories is I was working with a woman and her mom's spirit in heaven, and the first thing out of the mom's mouth was, "You need to throw out your peanut butter." And my client said, "Really, mom? That's the first thing you have to say to me since you died?" And she said, "Yeah, it's expired." And so I said to my client, "Go look at your peanut butter jar." And she did. And it was a year old, Heather.
Oh,
So
that's
she's using that peanut butter to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for her kids. And her mom's spirit in heaven's going, you need to throw that stuff out. So it's so much fun to see what they tell us.
I love that. And I think the misconception sometimes is that there's going to be like this scroll that unfurls and all this beautiful esoteric knowledge
Yeah.
comes through. And it's the practical, it's the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
And I love those validations.
And I love your input on this. That they it's like they all have ADD. They'll be bebopping around. They'll go from, watermelon to a truck to something that's career advice to whatever. And I use the analogy of when we first start talking with them, it's like priming a water well pump. You got to pump it a few times to get the water to flow. And then they're just like, and it doesn't seem to be in any particular order most of the time. Now, if we're in a line of questioning with them, it will be. And I can usually get them back on track by saying, okay, but what about this? But have you found that to be the case as well?
Yes, and for me it's always, well, it's an enjoyable ride. It's like a roller coaster ride. Hold on to
Yeah.
something because you don't know where you're going next.
Right.
But then it depends who you're speaking with. You kind of have to help regulate them. Like this is not going to be linear because linear doesn't really exist in the spirit world either. And so it may be a flash of one thing, and sometimes it can be challenging to keep up with, well, I'm still thinking
It
about
comes
the
in
peanut
fast.
butter.
Yeah.
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 Still
Yeah.
thinking about the peanut butter, and now we're on to the red truck, and I don't even remember my name anymore. Like we get swept into it because there's
Mhm.
such a velocity to it. But it does have this energy of celebration and gratitude, like so
Mhm.
happy to be connected and to have a voice again. And it's so much fun, so
I
beautiful.
agree. I agree. Just a joy.
Do you do anything to reset like your energy, or can you go through it? And I think we've talked before on your show about boundaries, about not always being on and not, going to the grocery store and seeing, medical MRIs, intuitive MRIs of people in front of you in line, or seeing their
Mhm.
spirits or whatever. Do you have an off switch, or you just go all the time?
No, I turn it on and off in a nanosecond, and that's what I teach. So I don't walk around scanning people. I am like a human MRI, you know that. I can see inside people's bodies, but I don't do it without their permission because I think that's unethical to do that. It's an invasion of their privacy. So I'm like a human MRI or an X-ray or a CT scan, and I can see broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer, and then help facilitate energetic healings. But I turn it on and off. Attention, intention, what my attention is on. Am I folding laundry or am I working with a client scanning them energetically for a medical something? And
Right.
then and then attention, intention. My intention is to help this client with whom I'm working. And then my attention goes to doing emails or throwing in a load of laundry or whatever. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it's just automatic on and off. I do not, no, I don't walk around doing woo woo 24/7 by any
I'm
means. When I do it, however, and I'll work with many clients during a day, and certainly on my show, we'll get a lot of people on from all over the world. And we can talk to your dead grandma. We can scan your cat. I can work with you on a medical thing. We can tell how close to death somebody is. We can do past life stuff. That's all part of the buffet of psychicness when you connect with spirit. And everybody has the ability. It's just a matter of developing and enhancing it. But what I find is it's energizing. Some people find that it depletes them. I don't find that. I find the exact opposite.
I'm the same. And somebody just asked me that the other day. They're like, "Oh, later in the day, oh, is this your last appointment for the day? I'm like, I hope, like, no, I've got like five more lined up. What are
Right.
you talking about? Um, but then that in itself can be, for me anyway, it's a reminder to step away from it still and
Right.
reset yourself because
Yeah.
otherwise it'd just be like my nervous system would get so jacked up from all of that. So yeah, I love that. Do you have clients or just friends and loved ones when you started this journey who are more comfortable with different aspects of that buffet? Because I know for me, I had some friends who would say, "Yes, you can talk to my dog for animal communication, but I don't believe in the other stuff you do." I'm like, well, okay, it's kind of all coming from the same place.
Right.
But do you find that in your work, or maybe you've helped to establish more of the comfort with what you do because you are so seamless in coming in and out of all those different areas with people?
Well, I've done it for 30 years, first of all. I've done it as a career for about 7 or 8 now. And family members and friends didn't buy it. They were
Mhm.
like, yeah, whatever. She's just, nuts or whatever. Yeah. Until they needed some help. And then they called on me. My brother Jay, my older brother, called one day and he said his best friend had had a stroke. He was in surgery. They were taking out part of his skull because his brain was swelling. And he said that his friend's name's Tim. He said, Tim's had a stroke. Do your thing. So I did.
Mhm.
And I didn't think he was going to make it out of the OR. I really thought he was going to die because he was in one of the phases of transition, which is when we're dying, we're surrounded by angels and the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets. But Tim, on the operating table, under anesthesia, getting part of his skull removed, gave me a message to give to my brother. And my brother was to deliver it to his dad. And it was a business thing.
Mhm.
So I texted Jay. Jay gave it to Tim's dad, and Tim's face turned ghostly white, Heather. And he had to sit down and he said, Jay, nobody except Tim and I know that information. There's no way you could know that. And Jay said, well, my sister just gave it to me. And he's like, what the heck is that? And so that made him a believer because there's
Yeah.
no way I could have gotten that. And then since that time, he calls me, whenever something's going on. But there are many stories like that, even to the point where I've had one friend's husband in particular said, "Would you have to prove it to me that this works?" I said, "Well, really, I don't. I mean, we can talk about whatever you want. You want to talk about football, the weather, your favorite restaurant, whatever. I don't care." And he said, "No, no, no, no. I want to talk about this stuff, but I don't believe it." I said, "Oh, that's fine. What do you want to know?" And so I'll tell him, and he said, "Well, I don't believe anybody can talk to spirit." And I said, "Well, do you pray?" And he said, "Of course I pray." And I said, "Great. To whom are you praying?" Jesus, whomever. I said, "Great. Do you get answered? Do you get prayers answered?" "Yeah, all the time." And I
Mhm.
said, "So you get guidance and you follow it and then it ends up being correct?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "So when you're talking with Jesus, are you sitting on the couch and Jesus is sitting next to you having a conversation with you?" He said, "No." And I said, "Oh, you're talking with his spirit." And then you can just see the wheels start to turn. And he said, "Well, I never thought of it that way." I said, "Well, you're doing it. You just don't realize it. That's what I do." And then it started the conversation and it went more in depth. And so I don't feel the need to convince anybody. And it's rare that I have somebody really challenge me on that at this point because I don't need to convince anybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
yeah. And anyone comes to that awareness when they need to, I think.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
just always interesting to me that under the umbrella of woo,
Yeah.
one thing could be okay, but the others were a little too far out there. And I don't encounter that as much anymore. That was several years ago.
Yeah.
But I just wondered if you had that same experience. Like,
I don't
scan
remember
my
that.
body, but don't talk to my dead loved ones.
Yeah,
That kind of thing.
I don't remember that. I think that that's somebody who's dipping their toe into woo woo
Yeah.
and it's they see that as kind of the most benign way to begin exploring this.
Yeah, that's true. And
And
the
woo, by the way, means source in Taoism.
does it?
It does. So when we say woo woo, it's a funny spin on it, but
Yeah,
it
it's
means
true.
source. And it all comes
I
from
did
source.
not know that, Julie
Yeah.
Ryan. I love
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah.
so fun. Mm. When you are connecting with loved ones in spirit, for you, what is the most challenging, or is there a most challenging time period when you're working through and observing those beautiful 12 steps, 12 phases of transition? Is there, they don't all happen in rapid succession all the time, right? There's different uh, periods of longevity depending on the person and where they're going. And can they go back and forth? Can we get down like close to, is it a count up or a count down? I don't remember.
Count
But
up. Yeah.
okay.
From one
Yeah.
to 12. Yeah, they can move around. There's no difficulty in conversing with anybody ever, any
Mhm.
spirit, whether it's attached to a body or not. I haven't found that. But again, I've been doing it for 30 years. So it's second nature for me. Somebody that's just starting out, what do? They go into fear. Am I really getting this? Is this really accurate? And what I teach is it's that first thing that comes in your head as fast as you can snap your fingers, or even before your thought is done being thought all the way.
Mhm.
And because time doesn't exist in the spirit world. So your loved one, let's say you're talking with a deceased loved one whose spirit's in heaven, they're answering you sometimes before your thoughts even done, you're even done thinking of it. And that's because time doesn't exist there. So they've already got it and they're responding. I find also that when the 12 phases of transition are happening, that knowing what's going on, that we're surrounded by angels and the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets is very comforting, not only to the person who's dying, but also the loved ones, the family members and other loved ones who are perhaps with the person in their last days. And the interesting thing about all of this is that university based research says that 90% of people at the end of their lives see the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets as they're transitioning. 90%.
Wow.
So perhaps back when grandma was dying and she was seeing her mother's spirit who'd been dead for 70 years. And we thought, oh, it's just the morphine. She's hallucinating. No, she wasn't. She could actually see her mom's spirit who was in the room.
Wow. And what prompted you to birth that beautiful offering out into the world, the 12 phases? Had you observed them enough that you noticed there was a trend or a path, or did you partner with spirit guides, your higher self or whatever to come up with that in that structure?
Yeah, it's a couple part answer there. The first time I saw it was when my own mother was dying in 2002. And it was very unexpected. And we drove through the night to be with her and the rest of the family who was assembled. And my heart was breaking on one side. I felt like the Lady of Justice statue, trying to keep balance. My heart was breaking on one side because my mother was dying. And on the other side, I was seeing all this angelic and spiritual stuff happening that was glorious. And I'd never seen it before. But then I'd never been around anybody who was dying, who was actively dying before. Neither had my siblings. And I kept seeing this stuff with the angels and these other phenomena that I'll mention in a minute. And I thought, God, this is wild. This
Mhm.
is, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know it's part of the equation to help her spirit separate from her body. And she was an educator, she was a teacher and a principal of grade school kids. She was my principal and my siblings' principal, even in grade school.
Oh, we
Yeah.
got to hear how that worked
I know.
out.
I only got sent to the office once for shooting a rubber band and it missed the kid I was aiming for and hit the teacher by mistake.
Oh, that's bad luck.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't get expelled, but I think I got reprimanded and I was told to put the roast in the oven when I got home from
Yeah.
school. Kind of a
Yeah, you would have gotten some extra detention chores
yeah, yeah,
tacked
yeah.
on.
She
Oh.
was working really hard to not laugh about that. But I was watching all of this happen and then when she died, 12 years Catholic schools, all of us, big, huge Catholic funeral. And at the end of every Roman Catholic funeral is a prayer called In Paradisum, which in Latin means into paradise. And it talks about how the angels and loved ones will greet you and lead you into paradise. And I thought, oh my heavens, I saw that happen with my mother.
Mhm.
And how old is this? And when I looked it up when I was writing my angelic attendance book, I learned that it began as a 5th century Gregorian chant. And so perhaps it took till the 5th century till somebody was learned enough, could read and write, because most
Mhm.
people were illiterate back then, to be able to write this prayer down. And certainly some of the most well educated people were men living in monasteries and synagogues. So I believe since the beginning of time, we've all been able to see these phases of transition. Maybe it just took that long for it to happen that somebody wrote it down. So, how did I get from my mother dying to where I am today with the book about it and everything? One day, a few years later, and I've done this with other family and friends who had a loved one who was dying, and I'd say, okay, they're in phase 3, they're in phase 5, they're whatever. And one day I was with my mentor and she was doing a healing on me, and the spirit of this dead Pope showed up. Whole Pope outfit, shepherd's rod, whole 9 yards.
Hard to miss. Don't blend
Yeah,
in though.
hat, whole 9 yards. And I said, who are you? And my mentor, Susan, could see him too. And he said, I'm Clement. And I said, I never heard of a Pope Clement. And he laughed and he said, well, I was number 6. And I said, okay, how may I help you? And he said, well, you need to teach the world what happens when somebody dies because people are so afraid of it. It's been bastardized over the millennia. There's nothing to fear. It's glorious. And I said, well, I'm a businesswoman. I'm not going to be doing that because people will think I'm nuts. So thank you anyway for stopping by. And he said, no, 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 no. Everything you've done in your life has prepared you for this. And it's your role to educate the world about this. And I said, again, thank you so much for stopping by. It's been great meeting you. Kind of like, that's not going to happen in this lifetime. So I leave, Heather. I get in my car to go home. And just for kicks, I did an internet search on my phone for Pope Clement VI. Come to find out, this guy was in office during the Black Plague when two-thirds
Oh,
of Europe died. And he's
so
best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead.
yeah, wow.
And
So that was kind of his specialty
I
then.
thought, Ryan, you can't make that up. And so it took me another couple of years to get the golden ovary courage because guys have breast balls and girls have golden ovaries.
I like it.
To get the golden ovary courage to put myself out there. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to get annihilated by comments and all that. I have not found that to be true at all. I find that it's a gift that people give to somebody who's lost a loved one. The book is a gift to people who have somebody at the end of their lives. Many, many churches of all denominations and synagogues give it to everybody that comes in to plan a funeral. Hospice organizations give it to their employees and their clients and their patients. And so it's been really interesting to watch it all unfold since I was prodded to write the book.
I love that. And about that book, you offer it for
For
free.
free. Yeah. Anybody that I always feel like a game show hostess when I hold it up, here's the
It's beautiful,
not going to
Vanna.
send you a
Thank you.
car, but I'm going to send you a free copy of Angelic
Oh, it's
Attendants.
so
What
much
happens?
better. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. As we transition from this life into the next. And it has illustrations in it so that you can see what the configurations are of the angels and the deceased loved ones, which is how we can tell what phase they're in. So if you want a free version, digital and audiobook, and it's in Spanish as well, if you prefer it in Spanish, just go to julieryangift.com, julieryangift.com, and we'll send you a free copy. I give thousands and thousands of these away a year. You're welcome to buy the paperback if you want, but I believe this stuff should be taught in the schools because everybody's so afraid of what's going to happen because we're led to think, when we die, we're either going to fly or we're going to fry. And
Fire and brimstone. Yeah.
yeah, everybody
And,
goes to heaven.
and it's the roller coaster ride we all go on. Like
Right,
nobody's escaping that. And what
right.
I love about the 12 phases is there's something so beautiful about putting structure around something that is so mystical and feels so mysterious to people. But when they can identify those specific phases, it such a comfort, I think. So I just think it's the most beautiful thing ever that you birthed
Oh,
through those
thanks.
golden ovaries of yours.
Well, and the other thing about it, when we're with somebody who's dying, it makes us face our own mortality. And we're thinking, holy smokes, I'm going to be there one day myself. What's going to happen? How scary is this? And when we know we're surrounded by angels and the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets, I think it helps us live our lives without fear, knowing if that's the worst thing that's going to happen to us, okay, bring it on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One more question about the spirit world, and then we'll kind of wrap up. Do spirits ever get stuck in between? Are there ghosts in your experience? Or is everyone crossing the threshold with grace and ease and moving through?
Everybody goes to heaven. It's been my experience. All dogs go to heaven. All people go to heaven too. There was a movie out in the 80s. I think all dogs go to heaven. All people go to heaven too. It's been my experience in talking with billions of spirits about this is we can decide to have an experience in spirit, but in the human realm. And that's what we would consider to be a ghost, where the spirit doesn't necessarily know they're dead, but they want to explore it both ways. When we incarnate into the human form, we forget all the stuff that goes on in the spirit world so that we can have the human experience. It's my experience that when we're in the in between form, like we're a ghost, I'm using air quotes here for those of you that are listening and not watching, we're experiencing the human existence, but just in a non-physical only form. And I have a couple of stories. Do you want me to share one of
Oh,
them?
yes, please.
Okay. My daughter-in-law, when she and my son were dating, I think she might have been in high school or maybe college before they were married. They were at her grandmother's house, and she and her mom and her aunt, her grandmother, were fixing Thanksgiving dinner. And all of a sudden, all these antique spoons and stuff came off the wall, the side of the cabinet, and just fell on the floor on their own. Nobody was there. And they all looked at each other and said, "What is that? What's going on? This is creepy." So Mallory's texted me, of course, going, Miss Julie scanned this. What's going on? And so I got that there were two men in the kitchen, and one looked like a farmer and one looked like a Confederate soldier. He had the gray uniform on. And so I was able to talk to them. I got their name. I got when they lived, that kind of stuff. And the farmer told me that that was on his farm, that grandma's house was on his farm. Well, Mallory's grandmother lived in a housing development, and she said, yes, she had found old-fashioned farm tools buried in the ground. And so we got his name, we got his property, that kind of stuff. And the son, that was his son, the Confederate soldier who died in the war, and he was looking for his daughter.
Oh.
And so we got him reunited with his daughter, who'd already passed, but she showed up in her little 8-year-old little self form. So he could do that. We reunited them. They went on to heaven. Fast forward, one of the grandsons did some research. They found the farmer's name, they found the son's name, they found that the property was, in fact, now a housing development. They found the deed to the property. It was a farm. They found other stuff that validated all the information that they gave us. So it's really fun when we can talk with these spirits who think they're still alive, even though they're just in spirit form, and they don't understand why people can't see them. And, maybe they're removing a book from a bookcase and it looks like the book's flying off the bookcase. and ready to hit somebody. Well, of course, we're going to go to fear when we see a
Right.
book coming off the
Yeah.
bookcase on its
Spoons
own.
falling off the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going, well, wait a minute. And so we lose clarity back to the 2 minute rule.
Mhm.
But it's really interesting. I have a whole bunch of stories about that where it's they're wanting to find somebody, they're wanting to explore something. We can help them go into the light and let them know. I'll say, okay, you're really dead. No, I'm not. Yes, you really are. And look, here's the light. And oftentimes we'll bring deceased loved ones' spirits in to coax them to come into the light. And then they just go on. But all spirits are pure love. We've been taught about evil spirits and blah, 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 blah. It's nonsense. It's all
Yeah.
been used to control the masses or put butts in the seat to watch a movie and scare the bejeebas out of you. Yeah,
Right. And get your $20 for a tub of popcorn.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that story. I got chills hearing about that. That's so cool. Julie Ryan, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours. Thank you so much for the light that you shine in this world. It's such a delight to have talked to you several times now. For anyone listening who wants to connect with you for more of your awesomeness out of the psychic buffet, trademarked TM, where can they reach you, Julie?
It's not just TM, honey. It's an R with a
R.
circle
That's
around
true.
it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. You got
Uh,
it.
AskJulieRyan.com is where everything is. We do a live call-in show every Thursday night at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and 5 Pacific. I've said that about 5 million times. And so it's really fun because people call in from all over. And then we release 3 interview shows a week. So you've been on those. So we have 4 shows a week. We have 5 YouTube channels, English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, and German, and 8 books, and you can reach everything at askjulieryan.com. Ask Julie Ryan is everything on social media. And so askjulieryan.com is the best place to find everything.
Amazing. Thank you so very much for your time today and for sharing your stories, your experiences, your wisdom. It's always such a joy to connect with you, Julie. Thank
You
you.
too. All righty. Thanks so much. Mwah. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.